I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, but that's the part of life. And I'm proud of making those mistakes. And they actually helped me to kind of improve of what I do. So I wouldn't change really anything.
Welcome to Mobile Growth and Pancakes, a podcast by StoreMaven. We break down how and why mobile apps grow. In each episode, we invite a mobile growth expert onto the show to break down a specific mobile growth strategy, how it worked, why it worked, and what they would do differently. I'm your host, Esther Shatz. Okay, so welcome to Mobile Growth and Pancakes. Matej, it's great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Do you want to introduce yourself quickly? A little bit about you?
Of course. So I've been in the gaming industry for 7 years so far. I started my career here in Slovakia at Pixel Federation. I was there for 5 years, doing a lot of stuff on the UA side. Then after 5 years, I joined Superscale. And then, well, when I was at the Pixel Federation, I started working on UA consultancy stuff. Just because I just wanted to get as many experiences as possible from different game genres, and working with different companies bring different challenges, which is great for gaining experiences. So fully working like that currently, and also very recently started working closely with Traplight on their game.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about KPIs for a second before we talk about strategy. When you're looking at the world of mobile, what KPIs are you optimizing for generally?
Come on. Everybody's optimizing for revenues. Obviously, we need to take a look at the LTVs or PLTVs or everything related to the monetization KPIs. Of course, I mean, a different game cycle requires some different measurements. And for example, when we are soft launching a game and we are in the retention stage, obviously there are no monetization KPIs yet. So let's say in the soft launch and the retention stage, we're looking at the retention numbers and the first time user experience and onboarding flow, and the A/B testing tutorials, for example, and looking at where players churn. But then after moving to the monetization stage and the real life of after global launch, which is where the fun starts, obviously, then revenues and monetization is the bread and butter, I would say. For
sure. I mean, there's obviously the question that begs to be asked when we talk about monetizing for, optimizing for revenue. And we talk about the upcoming IDFA changes, from the UA side. Any thoughts?
Don't even start with that. Come on. Okay. I mean, it's a lot of podcasts and a lot of articles were about the IDFAs. In fact, still there's pretty big holes in terms of the documentation. I mean, of course, we will need to start experimenting with the SKA network framework and see how we are going to leverage that in terms of the post-IDFA world, which obviously will change the whole UA landscape. But so far, I don't want to give you any false ideas or any false comments, because I'm about to start experimenting with how it should look like with the SKA network. So I'm keeping myself just a little bit behind, because there was a lot that was said during the August and just before September, and every podcast just ended with saying we will see, it's remained to be seen, we don't know yet. So although it's true, but well, we will see.
So I'll say one thing from my end on the IDFA that I think is a fair enough prediction. The creatives have always been important and will always be important. My guess is when targeting options shift a bit to top of the funnel on a higher level, creatives become even more important, right? You're competing now in a wider marketplace to make sure you're being seen. So I'd love to drill in a little bit with you about the creative side. What does it take to come up with creatives that actually do something on your funnel?
Yeah, of course. The main thing, and I think everybody should do is, and probably a lot of game developers already do this, and the marketing teams, is the main point is to really understand the target audience, because I think you need to know what resonates well with your target audience. If it's male or female audience, doesn't matter, but you need to know their interests. What's the age segment? Where are they, grouping? What are they looking for? If they are watching some, TV series, for example, right now, we found out that a lot of our target audience just love watching Rick and Morty and Family Guy stuff, and this type of humor and series. So that's how we try to think about the creatives as well, to put some kind of humor inside there, to see how that resonates within the target audience. And since we know these kind of like interests, those creatives resonate pretty well. So instead of like just spraying and praying, you need to know like what is the interest of your target audience, and then it makes your life much easier.
I like that idea of using, instead of maybe looking at it from the visual side, speaking that language of you respond to that sort of humor. Do you have an example that you remember off the top of your head of some text in there?
On the top of my head, we used, for example, we know that we leveraged the hype of the Witcher series that was launched on Netflix, and we saw some nice overlap between the target audience of our game and then of the Netflix of the Witcher there. So we used one of the characters we had in the game, and we made it look like a Witcher. And the name of the character was Hiltcher, actually. And then we used the Hiltcher the name of the character. It was a static image, and it already exploded after we just launched it on all the UA channels. It was like pretty nice evidence that it's actually working well. But then we also looked at the humor and used this kind of like funny situation when we were running for example, Thanks a Lot games before. So we used this humor situation, funny situation, and used the thanks from the game in the real life situation and connected that with the funny moments. It was resonating very well.
How do you connect it? When you're looking at the top of the line UA, you're trying these kind of innovative, new creative strategies. Do you find that there's a disconnect when users get into the App Store page, say, where maybe it doesn't match that creative, go through the onboarding flow? How do you kind of make sure that you're pulling the user all the way down through the funnel?
So we tried, obviously, a couple of fake ads type of creatives as well, because it was a big hit, let's say. And I guess it's working well for a couple of companies. So we tried that, but then we saw a lot of high click-through rates and a lot of good performing creatives on for example, on Facebook. But then we saw like a very low conversion rates in the App Store page. So it definitely needs to be connected to what people see in the creative, and then what they see in the store. So the expectations needs to be created also on the creative level, and then they need to be met on the App Store, and then obviously on the onboarding funnel. So when they got into the game, they are not surprised that much. It's like very different game.
And yeah, it's well, we won't mention the company best known for such a strategy right now, but I guess, what happens, one of the first points, which is completely true, is you have to know your different audiences and your different segments. And I have to imagine that creatives will vary, whether it's women or men or interest subgroups, that the creatives will be matched to those groups. How do you tackle that after the creative side? Meaning if you have two really different styles that are working well, you only have one App Store page and then you have the one onboarding flow, right?
Sure. There are couple of tricks you can use for this type of purposes. I mean, you can always try to create a fake App Store page and then try to mimic the creative there, or meet somewhere in the middle. So you have some components from one style of the creatives, and then some components of the different style of the creative, and then meet in the middle, which can and works pretty well for both audiences. It's just way of testing, and since Google experiments are in the Google console, which is also like free tool, then it makes your life easier. It just it's a lot of testing, but that's the UA life.
So I was just gonna get into the UA life. I mean, operating kind of at scale, you don't just focus on one creative and run it for 3 months and then focus on the next creative, right? How do you kind of?
Those were the times a couple of years ago when I remember when I was at Pixel Federation, we ran this creative for like 2 years almost, and it was like literally the best performing creatives ever. And it was a screenshot from the game. We just animated a little bit. It was performing amazing, really. But then, like now, 2 years. Wow. I think like if you check Diggy's Adventure now, it's still like there are still like variations of this creative still there and running the UA. But now what I found out is actually like using a weekly cycle of refreshing the creatives is performing really well. Like depends on the level of spend, but sometimes you just need to keep those campaigns fresh even on a weekly basis. Sometimes when you hit this like almost the hero creative, then you can run 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, but that's a rare thing. So in that case,
definitely not 2 years anymore.
not anymore. In that case, in the case of like weekly refreshing the creatives, then we have some process of like trying to find the ideas and how we can implement those quickly in the creatives and the creative testing.
Maybe you could talk through that process a little bit more. So you have, coming up, I guess there's the research phase you mentioned of finding the audiences and learning them, coming up with the creatives. What does the process look like that'll get you, functional creatives for the next month of work?
Yeah, well, we usually start also with the research of the audience, but also with the research of the competitors, which is the obvious thing to do, just to have a sense of what the competitors are doing and what's working for them as well. But then combining it with in terms of what works for them, with our target audience, with our type of like humor and funny situation, how we can incorporate that in the creatives. But that's happening in brainstorming session, which is obviously very tough now during the corona situation. But there is a Google Drawing, I think, tool which we use where everybody is present and they can create their comments and tasks and whatever just during the brainstorming session. And then after we brainstorm some ideas, we just go through the classic process of back and forth with either game team or if you are an agency with a client, and then basically create the creative and just start testing it. And after you find out the winner, then just testing either or working either on in the iterations or just testing a very different process, and the circle just starts all over again.
How do you know when you have, I'd imagine you probably start with one broader list of ideas and then narrow it down before you actually get to the stage of starting to really bang it out. How do you decide on which ideas you're moving forward with or not?
Well, there is not like very specific KPI for making those decisions. I mean, we obviously look at the either like past performance, or if like on the like something like craziness level of the creative concept, because we saw for some games that like the level of craziness works pretty well, and if it's like more crazy, the better. And we are kind of like a benchmark internally for this, because we're also like, I play a lot of games and I'm also part of the target audience. So if something is really crazy enough and catches my attention, I know it's gonna work. This is like bulletproof solutions, because we tried this a couple of times that always worked. So it's a combination of these, let's say, KPIs. So past performance, level of craziness of the concept, and then ready to go.
Do you ever reuse concepts? Do you have kind of an archive that you tap into every now and again?
Yeah, we try to use any old evergreen creatives from time to time, because I find out that it usually works. I need some, after you just run it for a couple, well, if it's an evergreen or hero creative and which was running for a couple of months, then it needs some time to rest, let's say. And then after, I don't know, half a year or something, well, I don't have a specific number of months, but after some time, just reuse it all over again. And it tends to work. So it's sometimes when you're just, desperate enough, you just play the old card and use the evergreen creative and see like if that's going to work again.
Do you have, other than pulling the evergreen out of the back pocket, is there anything that you really thought should have been amazing and tanked miserably?
Oh, of course. I mean, these happened a lot of time before, and like anything like 3D CGI effects, really cool, expensive creative production that was, but it was really good looking. And then it just didn't work. And then there is the really horrible looking creative that looks nothing like good production video. Then I immediately start to work. But then there's the factor of either like getting engagements on those creatives, and also like if the creative is not looking as an ad and it looks pretty horrible, then people might think it's actually content from the player. So that works well. But of course, like you have to fail. You have to fail a lot of times to see what's working and what's not working, and it's part of the process.
We always say the biggest heartbreak for every designer who worked on a beautiful project, when you find ugly converts better, and it just happens a lot. It's the saddest part. Yeah. What do you think has changed the most in the last couple of years? If you look at the day-to-day or maybe the trends that you've been seeing across the industry.
Well, in terms of like the combination of the creatives and the current landscape, I think introduction of all these event optimized campaigns in the last years and the value optimized campaigns changed also like the how I look at the creatives and the performance of those creatives, because a lot of people test the creatives on for like mobile app install optimized campaigns, because it's like cheaper and you will see results quickly. But then it might be a little bit misleading, because when you're looking at app event optimized campaigns, purchase optimized campaigns, or value optimized campaigns, different type of creatives tends to work, because it's different type of the audience. So that is something that changed a lot, the UA landscape in the last years, and it's still like changing. And now, like you mentioned, the IDFAs, that's gonna be a different story. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. So it's going to be really adventurous, but it's going to change everything, and also the creative testing. So now also like Facebook introduced AAA campaigns, which is the UAC equivalent for Facebook. And then there is also like a very big difference between the creative change, the creative testing, because now if you are looking at the regular campaigns and testing creative they're not performing the same as if they are in the AAA campaign. So now, well, fun times to be a video manager in the gaming world. Definitely
not boring.
No, not at all.
You touched on when we were talking about your KPIs. You touched on kind of the difference between soft launch and maintaining a game. I'm interested in, from the UA side, in terms of how you're approaching users, or in terms of, kind of strategy before you start looking at your bottom goals. Is there anything that's very different between that initial introduction to kind of maintaining something that's been around for a while?
Well, it needs to be different. For example, like running the UA in soft launch and for all these stages, like text stage and retention stage and monetization stages, is going to be different, because you're Like geos are limited. You can't just, you can't spend whatever you like, whatever it's on your bank account, just to get enough data to kick in. But that's it's going to be limited, and it's definitely different than when you're looking at the large scale UA on the live game afterwards. In the monetization stage, there is a possibility, and like it should be done, like an introduction of multiple UA channels just to test the waters before going global, which then you can leverage afterwards. So it is definitely different. You need to just keep in mind what are you trying to achieve, which I said, like the different KPIs are, the KPIs are different in the different stages of the soft launch. And obviously in different, also there are different after launch, because then after launch, you need to take a look at the payback window and say if you're aiming for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever days, and then adjust the strategy to that goal.
Makes sense. And how do you tie organics into this whole picture? Do you guys look at organics as a factor of UA? Is it its own world?
It's a combination. I mean, I'm looking at the organics as a separate factor. I'm trying to look at the paid ROAS all the time, and then some companies use some kind of coefficient, like using 20% uplift, or sometimes you use a blended approach where you count all the organics inside. Depends on the level of spend, of course. I usually look at the paid only, and then everything on the organic side is just a really nice bonus.
Yeah. Then you're never disappointed.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do when you hit?
It can be slightly, it can be misleading a little bit when you look at the blended or you doing these uplifts, because then organics might work better than the UA, which obviously should not happen, but can happen after all. And then you are not running the UA effectively, and that's definitely not what you should supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So interesting. You keep it kind of clean just so you know that you're working on the factor that's within your control, and that everything else is nice to have. What do you do when you hit you're in kind of a stagnation or a decay? So none of your campaigns seem to be doing what you need them to do, or you're not getting the KPIs that you need to hit. How do you reset that?
Yeah, but it happens. Sometimes multiple times during the year because of whatever factors, corona, seasonality, product is stagnating as well. So you need to keep in mind like where to hit the gas and when to push back a little bit, because you just, you can't just grow all the time. Oh, well, you can, but you need to have a really good product on your hand. So it's usually conversation with the product team and looking at the pipeline and based on the new features or the features that are already in the game, based on that time spent. If I'm stagnating on a different level of spend, sometimes I just look at what worked before in the past and try to recreate that success again. Try to reset all the learnings because that worked pretty well for me in the past, to be honest. And you just need to know when to push back a little bit when you see there is some kind of slow your ROAS curves are not increasing that well enough in the last couple of days, and there is a signal that okay, so why just we don't slow down a little bit, rethink the whole creative structure and the creative process, then look at the audiences and what kind of different type of audiences we are now targeting and getting into the game, and then restructure the campaign logic and take it from there.
Let's talk about audiences for a second, because it's also in the research stage. Knowing your audience is something that's so critical. How do you define the audience? Is it based on your existing body of users? Is it based on research? Do you go broad and then just start narrowing once you get the data in?
Very good question. I will give you the classic answer. It depends. But now, well, for example, let's take the soft launch process. I usually go when I'm talking about the targeting of on the UA side, like going from broad to narrowing it down piece by piece, starting with broad targeting and then going through broad interest, then competitor interest, and then building lookalikes. Now that's changing because of the AAA campaigns, but I still think and I feel that the AAA campaigns are not the best fit for soft launch just now, but will be probably in the future. And but I'm looking at the competitors, looking at like what kind of audience they have, trying to match it with the game we have at the moment. Then there are a lot of tools you can leverage, like 12 Trades or Quantic Foundry, I think. They have a lot of very nice, even free articles about the type of audiences. So combining this, and also you can take a look at the Facebook audience insights if there is not anything else that you can check. So it's a combination of all these activities.
And how do you, in a dream world, it doesn't have to be how it is today, but how should UA be working with other departments? What's the right balance of focusing on your zone versus tying all strategies in together and making sure you have a cohesive vision?
Well, I think the UA department should be in a very close contact with the product team. Doesn't necessarily need to be on a daily basis, but at least like on a weekly basis, just everybody know what's going on both sides, because sometimes when you're running some type of like product A/B tests, the UA traffic can influence the results pretty significantly. So everybody needs to know what's going on. So in the perfect world, these two departments are working very closely. Then the third party there should be the BI team. So and this is what we found again in the soft launch, that the BI team, product team, and the UA team should be the very best friends and check everything every day together, and everybody should be on the same page. So in the beautiful world, these three departments work very closely together. But also, the UA team should be able to also work very closely with all the execs, because they need to understand why you are pulling back with the spend. What are you doing on the UA side? Why you are targeting this? Why you are implementing new channels and whatnot? So yeah, that's but it's happening in at least in a couple of companies already. So the beautiful world is here.
All right, let's say you go back 3 years, you get to change something fundamental. You can do something completely different that you didn't do then. What would you change?
Oh, I wouldn't change anything. Anything really. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, but that's the part of life, and I'm proud of making those mistakes, and they actually helped me to kind of improve on what I do. So I wouldn't change really anything. I think everything's happened for a reason. So that's how I look at the UA life and the life in general.
Very positive way to look. I think you're the first person who said absolutely nothing, believe it or not. Okay, so now quick fire round questions that we ask everyone. First one is, if you have somebody who's just starting out looking to be in mobile growth and expanding their marketing, what's the one tip that you would give them?
One tip to give, sign up for Mobile Dev Memo or quantmar.com to get all the insights you can get and just read all through, because there are a lot of questions, and then there are a lot of answers also from the experts that know what they are talking about.
All right, well, you really ruined my next question, which was, what's the best resource for learning about mobile growth?
There you go. Yeah, there you go. 2 in 1.
All right, let's say Corona's a thing of the past. You get to take anybody in the industry that you want out to lunch. Who are you taking?
I would take my my Facebook rep at the moment. He's very helpful, and we're pretty eager to meet him in person. He's a great guy.
Oh, that's a very nice answer. You went for I like that you didn't go for the high level of, I'll take whoever's making the decisions.
Yeah.
Good answer. Okay, most important question. What is your favorite flavor of pancake?
Ooh, I really like the peanut butter jelly pancakes.
Okay, and if people want to know more about you, hear a little bit more from you, where can they find you?
Yeah, just add me on LinkedIn. That's the main social network for me.
Perfect. All right, Matej, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And that was Mobile Growth and Pancakes. To find out more about StoreMaven and how we can improve App Store performance, visit storemaven.com. And then make sure to search for Mobile Growth and Pancakes in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at StoreMaven, thanks for listening.